Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Face2Face podcast. My name is Nicole Gamwendo, and today my guest is one of the most inspirational women in Africa, and we get to call her one of our own. Her name is Dr. Rachel Sibande. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and it's an honor, I should say.
Yours, 247.
Yours 247. Yours 247.
Yours, 247.
Yours, 247.
Yours 247.
You are a woman that I think not just women, but men also aspire to do half of what you've done in your career. How does it feel to be you?
Yo, that's a a big one. Humbling, but as I also say, to whom much is given, much is expected. So it is a challenge. Very big shoes to wear, but truly humbling.
Okay. Now, you founded mHub in 2014, way before we even knew what innovation ecosystems were in Malawi. So what gap were you seeing at the time? What personally motivated you for you to step in and actually set it up?
Right. So maybe take a step back. I had actually gone to the US on an exchange program supported by the American government in 2012. And at the time, it was a moment in my life where I was just looking to see, what is my purpose? What should I be doing to give back to humanity in life?
Yeah.
And I was asking myself, when all is said and done, what will be my legacy? Why would have God put me on earth? And on one weekend in Chicago, I did come across the concept of an innovation hub.
Okay.
At the time, I was on an internship program at the Chicago Board of Trade. And often on weekends, part of an exchange program would go to see different things. So this was a hub that was particularly incubating young entrepreneurs with accounting firms and auditing firms, providing business management support, helping them to grow their businesses. But I thought, well, I am a geek. Short of saying I'm a computer scientist, get fascinated by technology. So I thought, well, it would be good to go back home and set up a technology hub. So really, I copied that concept, tweaked it to suit Malawi's context, but also the context of technology, and came home and set up mHub.
Okay.
So the goal there was to incubate, provide technical skills, business skills for young technology entrepreneurs to thrive. More so because as a geek myself, it had been a very lonely space and journey.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Especially as a woman.
Yes. Yes. When I went for my undergrad, well, there were a couple of women. I think there were like 14 of us when we started in the bachelor's class. So good company, not bad, but obviously more men. Fewer graduated in the computing class. When I went for my master's degree, there were 2 women in my class.
No way.
And then when I went to study for my Ph.D., and I don't say this with any iota of pride or joy, it gives me no joy at all. It's one of the reasons I decided it doesn't have to be this lonely and thin space for women. I was the only woman in that PhD class and only person of color.
That is extremely lonely.
Yeah, so I had to
Extremely
transcend
lonely.
a lot of isms, as I call them, sexism, racism, colorism,
And bias in
ageism.
general as well.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I remember that going into the computer lab, I would have my fellow white males leave the computer lab each time I walked in.
Because you walked in?
Yes. At first, it didn't quite land. I didn't quite get it until after some time I figured, okay, they can't share this space with me because of my color. But anyway, as they say, if life throws lemons at you, make lemonade. I decided, you know what, I will make very good use of the space if they leave it to me because of my color. So I spent a lot of nights, all-nighters in there, and just got work done, slept there sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, to answer your question, I thought it's important to bring the ladder down and get more young people and even more women and young girls into the technology space. It was not enough for me to be alone in such spaces, but that there should be more, because through that we can develop more innovative solutions to solve.
I love that. I love that. So looking at the journey from mHub, from where it started to now where you are, you're shaping AI systems literally at a continental level. You've come so far. What impact are you most proud of from what you've done so far? And also, how has the global exposure reshaped your view of Malawi's place in the digital future?
Right. So let's start with the last one. I think what I'm seeing now in terms of how the global space has changed my perspective is the potential I see for Africa to be at the forefront of creating innovative technology solutions for the world and not just for Africa. With the previous industrial revolutions, be it, the first where we saw steam engines, or the second where we saw electricity, or the third where we saw, computing, digitization, mobile phones, the internet.
Communication and everything.
Yes, majority of the products from these industrial revolutions came from the north to the south, right? From the west, coming down to like the continent of Africa. What I see in this fourth industrial revolution is that Africa has an opportunity to build technology solutions that could solve global problems. Because we've just democratized tech. AI will help us to leapfrog that. So that excites me a lot. It's no longer about us waiting for things to be made elsewhere. We can do it here. What excites me the most about, you mean like mHub or
your journey, your personal journey from mHub to now where you're at?
Right. I think for me, what really warms my heart is seeing the impact that we've had on others. And when I see the stories of some of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with, where they have been and where they are at now, that warms my heart and excites me a lot. And I'll just give you one example. Young woman called Ngawa Jadada of Tantwe Enterprises. I mean, we went to college together. She was ahead of me. But when I met her, as I started mHub, she was selling tomatoes off the boot of her car. And she was also selling chidede, roselle. Is that? Yeah. I love it. Hibiscus.
Yes.
Dried leaves.
I always forget that roselle is hibiscus. Okay.
Yes. So, but through mHub support, because we've been providing financing to young entrepreneurs from as small ticket sizes of like $2,500 to as high ticket sizes of about $40,000 for each entrepreneur. Cumulatively, we should have provided financing of up to $2.5 million to date. but was seeing with the little injection of that $40,000 capital in her business and seeing how she's ultimately transformed because of the business management support, making her business investment ready. She's been able to generate even more catalytic financing beyond that initial $40,000. She's become so investment ready that there have been other financiers that have come in to put in even as much as $1 million. Now she has a range of products from selling.
I'm a huge fan.
Okay.
I'm a huge, especially for the ginger hibiscus tea.
Right?
There's never a day in my life that I don't take it.
I can totally understand. I love the hibiscus tea too. So now she's transformed from selling raw tomatoes, dried hibiscus leaves, to packaging majority of teas.
She's added value.
Yeah, she's added value. So she's got tea brands from your hibiscus, your
Yeah.
lemongrass,
Ginger.
I mean, you can name it, to spices, to jams. And these are not just being sold off the boot of her car.
No, they're
They
in
are
the
big
major
brands
supermarkets.
In the major supermarkets,
Yeah.
in Malawian hotels. And tell you what, once I was in America in a spa and I had her tea
No
served.
way.
Those are the stories that
Wow.
warm my heart.
Wow.
That even as Malawians, we can build innovative products that transcend the boundaries and can go global. But it's with those little, innovative impact that we've had on her business, providing the business management training, making them investment ready, and providing that catalytic financing, however little, and just seeing how much it's helped them to make the big strides.
No, that
warms my heart.
Yeah, it's a brilliant success story. It really is. Now, bringing the conversation a bit more to the digital side of things. Now, as things are now in Malawi, there's a growing access to digital skills among young people, but a lot of young people still struggle to make money from them. So, what exactly, in your opinion, do you think is the short circuit? Like, where are we not connecting?
Right. Very brilliant question, because the way I see it is a skill is a livelihood only if one can earn from it. Otherwise, it's just a certificate.
Yeah.
And what that means is we need skills that can be relevant to the market. So I think there's a question of, are we building young people that have the relevant skills for the market? That is probably where the disconnect is.
Okay.
Because it's got to be something that somebody will pay for.
Okay. Okay. So now you're working extensively with AI, with machine learning and data systems. How do you think young people should position themselves to then now stay relevant, especially with the way the world is moving so fast and we don't want to be left behind?
Yeah. I think in this era of AI, machine learning, big data, first of all, we need to understand that adapting, being agile to learn, relearn, unlearn, upskill, reskill is the biggest skill of them all. Your initial skill will not be your ultimate skill.
Okay.
So one has to keep adapting and relearning and upskilling. Super important. I think if there's one thing I was going to say also is that, when I look at every sector within the fabric of society, be it health, education, agriculture, it will all be impacted by digital.
Of course.
And so having digital skills will no longer be an option.
It's a must.
But a must. And so I think if I was a young person, or not even young, I'd be looking at redefining what work is. For the future, the way I see it, we're going to have very interesting jobs and titles. I see social media anthropologists, where, people that are just studying behaviors of people on social media. There are elements around digital marketing that we can look at. There are elements about the psychology of people in as far as their interaction with technology is concerned. I could go on and on. but technology's kind of democratized how we learn, how we skill, how we do business.
Yeah.
And it's a space that, one should latch on and make the best of.
So tying into that, the different kinds of careers that we're looking forward to having in the future, especially with the rise of AI now, do you think that we're at a risk of training a generation for jobs that will soon be automated as it is now? Because I think especially here in Malawi, most of the courses that we have in our universities are very, for lack of a better word, rudimentary.
Yeah. We really need to get to a place where we are training for relevance.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not just about having a skill, but is it relevant? Can it become a livelihood? How does it become a livelihood? Can it help you to earn? Can it help you to solve for some of the, the world's biggest problems? Can you build something out of it? I mean, when you look at some of the unicorns, there's Ph.D. in Malawi.
Yeah.
He's solving a critical payment problem. You've got African unicorns like Flutterwave from Nigeria initially. They're solving a global payment problem, integrating African payments into the global payment systems. Your cheaper cash, M-Pesa, from Kenya, pretty much having, your bank on your basic mobile phone. And we know that for the informal market, there's more money circulating in mobile money than there is
in the formal markets.
in the formal
that's so
banking
true.
system. And that's the only way to get the unbanked banked. And so I think it's about looking at, can we build skills that will help our young people to build solutions like that, that solve for, pain points and problems that people are facing. And our universities need to constantly review curricula to make sure that it is building for relevance. And that will only happen if there is that intersection between our education system and the industry.
Okay.
So that, it's demand and supply.
Yeah.
You can't keep producing graduates that are not relevant, right? But at the same time, I also just want to challenge fellow young people that, in computing, right, the way I see it, a lot of what we learn in class is only fundamental. Maybe I would say 30%. The 70%, you almost have to go out there and figure it out. And the internet is a good place now where you can teach yourself a lot of other skills to stay relevant.
I agree. It's kind of, I feel like now computer science is low-key like medicine in a way, where you actually have to test the patient for you to learn new things in a way. Earlier on, you said that one of the reasons why you started mHub was to bring the ladder down. And since then, you've engaged both grassroots innovators and global funders. So where exactly do you see the disconnection between capital investments and innovation in Africa?
So number one is, I think that investors do not understand or build products that are contextually appropriate for the innovation ecosystem. Let's look at, let's say, financing from banks. Often banks will look for collateral.
Security.
Yes. And yet our startups, all they have is momentum. They don't have buildings.
And passion, that's it.
And the passion. And so how do we build innovative financing products that suit the context and realities of startups that perhaps don't have collateral? All they have maybe is data, transactions, maybe they have users, there is revenue growth or some contracts. Is there a way to build innovative financing products for startups that may not have collateral, but have a big vision, big passion? How do they do that? I think there's an opportunity for banks to partner, and not just banks, even development partners or equity investment entities, partnering with innovation hubs so that hubs can support these innovative entrepreneurs to walk that journey in building their capacity to be investment ready, to build their capacities to make sure that, it's a way to de-risk, take away that risk, stage gate that financing with milestones. So they don't have to do the entire huge payout at once.
Yeah.
But like, let's say, give them milestones to say, if you're able to achieve these milestones, put in a good team, improve your product design, then you're going to get this financing.
Okay.
And then if you jump this stage gate, you do well, maybe in your packaging, in unlocking one or two key markets, then you get your next financing. But financiers, that's not their core job, right?
Yeah.
To like walk that journey with these entrepreneurs. And maybe that's something that they need to leverage partnerships with incubators, accelerators, to do that while they provide their financing. So it's a way of de-risking innovation and creating what I call patient capital for young innovators.
Okay.
If we can fix that, then maybe that gap that you reference will not be there.
I like that you mentioned that, because that was actually going to be my next point and next question too, because we've seen institutions like Standard Bank, for example, that have started supporting startups and try to also offer business training as well, not just the financing, but even the explanation of how to run a business, how to set it up and how to get it going, and how to have a healthy business in and of itself. Realistically, do you think it is possible for banks, financiers, to actually be pivotal with innovation startups?
Absolutely. And you just gave a very good example of Standard Bank. I know of their Puka Innovation Hub and how they've partnered with like hubs and accelerators. It's exactly the concept I was talking about, where they as a bank are providing this patient capital here, and the innovation hub and the accelerator is supporting these young innovators or entrepreneurs to get the capacity they need and stage getting it with milestones. So that's a brilliant concept that has been taken to execution by Standard Bank. You can only hope that there could be more that join the frenzy to make sure there's potential opportunities, diverse opportunities for our young entrepreneurs to choose from. Yeah.
I like that also, because the other thing I've noticed is when it comes to financing for startups, we usually look outside the continent for financing. And you personally have helped shape multi-million-dollar initiatives. Case in point, what was mHub was saying, you've already invested over $2.5 million to date. What do you think it would take to build an African-led innovation financing ecosystem?
So I must say that I think we're already on that journey.
Okay.
I'm just looking forward to like seeing it, pop out. But in terms of what it would take, obviously, number one is building for context.
Okay.
It matters for us to understand the unique challenges that we face here in Africa in terms of accessing, financing. And I think one of the things we spoke about, obviously, is collateral.
Yes.
So how do we build innovative financing systems that are not premised on the sort of collateral that we have known it as? All right? And technology is one space to make use of.
Okay.
In that space, by understanding data, using data as a way of generating credit risk rating for some of these entrepreneurs. I think the other bit is really around coordination of the ecosystem. Certainly, we are not short of the pots of investment, but getting it pulled into centralized funding pots would enhance the sort of impact that sort of funding would have. I think the third, obviously, is having these accelerators and innovation hubs curate programs that can support our innovators to transcend from where they are at now, as in seeking financing, to becoming investment ready, because there are specific things that investors are looking for. And it makes sense to get them polished and ready for those sort of pitches to be investment ready. And then finally, I think for the entrepreneurs themselves, making sure that they have the right teams and the right capacity. Because as I see it, even as an investor myself, because in my current job at the Gates Foundation, what I do is make investments. Well, they are not commercial investments often. These are grant investments into countries on all things around health, agriculture, education, but more so at the intersection of artificial intelligence and these domains. What I have learned is that ideas are universal.
Okay.
So everybody could have a brilliant idea somewhere, but ultimately, people invest in people. So there's got to be the right capacity,
Okay.
that passion, the drive, the enthusiasm, and you're also looking at not just what I call the hardware, but also the soft skills.
I
Yeah.
think people take that for granted, eh? Soft skills. We do,
The
like ability.
Yeah, to pitch, to communicate, the vision, those really matter. So ultimately, I think for the entrepreneurs, building stronger teams that are passionate, that are driven, because people invest in people. If it were about investing in ideas, well, there are plenty brilliant ideas out there.
Even that we know people who have notebooks packed to the brim of ideas that never came to fruition.
Oh, yeah.
Earlier on, you said one of the things that you experienced when you were doing your PhD was that you were the only woman and woman of color as well. What deliberate interventions are needed to change outcomes for women in STEM, like to put more women in those spaces?
Right. I think number one is our society, societal norms. How do we view girls? And I'm starting with girls because that's the foundation, right?
Yeah.
In as far as science subjects are concerned. Oftentimes, I was a teacher myself early on. When
Really?
I was young. Yeah.
Okay.
I taught maths and ICT somewhere in Wimbe, Kasungu, Kuntuntama.
Wow, there's so many layers to you. So many layers.
Yeah, and what I noted, even growing up, is that we almost normalize that it's okay for girls not to do well in maths and science.
That's expected.
Yeah, they can get away with that. I'm grateful that that was not the case in my case.
Okay.
For my parents, it was like, you gotta do as well. It doesn't matter. So we need to break down those societal norms and stereotypes around girls and science subjects. I think the second part is re-looking at our education system, the pedagogies in how education is delivered to make these subjects exciting.
Yeah,
And
I
also
agree.
creating incentives for what it means to succeed. I mean, I've seen some good incentives like the Mathematics Olympiad
Yeah.
program. It's exciting to know that if I do well, there's gonna be some form of reward. And then I think also third, creating mechanisms of showing clear pathways to say, if you get into science, tech, mathematics, engineering, what does that pathway look like?
Yeah.
What are the opportunities that lie ahead? And role modeling is one. And I just want to say, even to the girls, sometimes you might not know somebody who has walked that path, but just reading about them and knowing that they existed elsewhere matters.
It does.
Growing up, I read about Ada Lovelace.
Okay.
Did you know that the first computer programmer, I'm not saying the first woman programmer,
With
but
the first computer.
first computer programmer, forget about the gender, was a woman.
I'm not surprised.
And her name was Ada Lovelace. I was intrigued by her. And when I played the first computer game at age 11, which was really what pivoted my aspirations from wanting to become a French teacher to wanting to become a computer scientist, because I wanted to build a game too. I was like,
That's
I need to
nice.
build one. It was really because of Ada Lovelace. And there are plenty women. Your Grace Hoppers, she built some of the world's first programming languages. You have Katherine Johnson. Oh, brilliant, amazing story. You know, when America was sending these astronauts into space in the 60s, they had done the calculations, right, for the spaceship.
Yeah.
For the spaceship. on an IBM computer. So I imagine it was this big mainframe computer.
Fill the whole room.
Yes. And, the astronauts couldn't trust, the equations and the outputs that came out of the computer until this great mathematician had to literally use her pencil, reading through line by line of those equations and the outputs. And only until she confirmed that these are good to go.
Did they actually trust that, okay, we're flying to space?
Yes.
That's amazing.
And it was a woman.
That's
Katherine
amazing.
Johnson. So it's important to get these stories of great women that have gone ahead of us and have done phenomenal things told. And I'm glad Catherine's story is now in a movie.
Yes, it is. Hidden Figures.
Yeah, so we need to tell more of these stories to inspire our young girls that, as Barack Obama used to say, yes, they too can. It is possible.
Speaking of inequalities, though, I think one of the fears that people have when it comes to AI is you're currently leading AI investments across over 20 countries. So how do we ensure that this technology doesn't deepen the inequalities that we see in Africa? Because I think that's one of the biggest fears that we have, because there are countries that don't have access to the best and countries that do. Your thoughts?
Yeah, interesting. Actually reminds me something somebody asked me the other time, that apparently they were like, oh, there are 4 existential threats to humanity right now. And I was like, and like, yeah, and AI is one of them. And I said, oh, what are the rest? And they said pandemics, climate change, and nuclear bombs. And I just felt like, oh, wow. So you put AI in the same bucket with
as nuclear bombs?
But the point I'm making is I hear you. There's a lot of fear, concerns around the impact of AI, enhancing inequalities, or wiping out the earth.
I think the movie Terminator spoiled us.
Yeah?
It did.
So all I can say is it's a spectrum of the good and the bad. I mean, it's just like electricity as an innovation. When it came through, there's the good and the bad. It enhanced mass production, but we also know it's dangerous on the other front. And I mean, with AI, the good is that it will help us to leapfrog, to enhance, like fintech. I'll give you one example as to, why I have hope in AI. Africa has a deficit in community health workers, frontline health workers, of as much as maybe close to 6 million. We're never going to train.
It's never going to be a time.
We're never going to fill that gap for many reasons, including the fiscal challenges that our countries face. AI gives us that opportunity to leapfrog and to fill that gap. Because if we can integrate AI, as in some of the work that I'm doing on the continent, in health systems, to provide the opportunity for clinicians to leverage AI for clinical decision support, or where AI is transcribing the clinician and patient conversation. So it takes away the administrative burden of the clinician to write and document, but also the AI, because it's been trained on thousands of medical journals, thousands of data around health guidelines. It can prompt the clinician, have you considered testing for X, testing for Y? In fact, we've already done some work like in Kenya with an entity called Penda Health, where by integrating AI in electronic medical record systems, clinicians have improved diagnosis errors, treatment errors, and errors made from like recording, the examination with a patient by up to as high as 22%. So those are the stories that I believe warm my heart and will make a difference in Africa, leapfrogging and leveraging artificial intelligence, despite all these other concerns around maybe it replacing cognitive capabilities or AI being used for the wrong things. I mean, maybe one last example. When I was younger, I got this student fellowship to pretty much write code, like write programs for that could be used in deploying missiles. So like how do you write code for like a missile to take off with a particular weight, at a particular speed, and more important, to land,
Or you wanted to.
yes, at these particular geo coordinates, right? Story for another day. But the point I want to make is that same code for this particular use case I've mentioned, it's quite terrible, right?
It is.
Because that will be used to kill women and children, as
It
we're
is,
seeing in
yeah.
other parts of the world right now. Warfare or war has become more automated.
It is.
But imagine that same code can be used to write code for a drone to
To drop
carry
off
a
medication.
pint of blood, to carry medication,
Food.
food, to be delivered in hard to reach places.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a classic example of the good and the bad. And I think
literally.
it just depends on how best we want to use it.
So I guess at the end of the day, the responsibility lies with us on how we use it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We need to put in place the right guardrails to make sure that we are using artificial intelligence safely and responsibly. Yeah,
Okay.
for the best of humanity.
Yeah, I think that's the important part,
Yeah.
not self-serving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe in closing, if you could challenge young innovators in Malawi with one uncomfortable truth, what would it be?
Sure. You know, I don't know if this is gonna make it on the final podcast.
Say it.
But as I sat there, I was talking to a friend, and he was like, "Oh, I want us to chat about the philosophy of what's the definition of truth." So yeah, it's kind of intriguing that you ask me with one uncomfortable truth. I think I would say Malawi is not short of talent. Malawi is not short of great ideas.
Okay.
Malawi is not short of challenges. By the way, I always look at challenges as opportunities.
Yeah.
But I would challenge them to think, well, for some, they'll say think outside the box. But
that's such a cliche.
yeah, not to limit themselves to looking at solving Malawian problems, but to look at solving global problems. In tech, we're often inspired by Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Silicon Valley is in Stanford, somewhere on the western side of America. One would think there are things you can do, like great, amazing things you can do only if and when you are in Silicon Valley. I want to tell them that for me, Silicon Valley is just a mindset. All you need to do,
I like that.
yes, is export it and be in that mindset. For me, the sky is not even the limit. I don't agree to that.
I mean, we're sending
We're
people to
sending
space.
So think big, do big, go big. It is possible.
Wow. Dr. Rachel, I cannot begin to say what a pleasure and honor it's been to have this conversation with you. And thank you for taking the time to be with us on Face to Face.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yours, 247.
Yours 247. Yours 247.
Yours, 247.
Yours, 247.
Yours 247.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Face to Face that was proudly sponsored by Standard Bank Malawi. Feel free to like, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that share button if you enjoyed the episode. See you in the next one.